field leader. I was a division commander for him during Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Most obviously was enormous intelligence and experience, so he understood what was going on. I think secondly, an ability to, through force of personality, organize events and shape them to his will. So he was a force of nature without which that campaign could not have come out in such a splendid short-term victory. Clearly, his finest moment was trying to unravel the complexity in Saudi Arabia and sort out what are we going to do about retaking Kuwait. We went into a briefing room, and Schwarzkopf stood up in front of every general and admiral in the joint battle force and personally briefed the plan of attack on Iraq. And as he pulled the curtain off this map and we saw what we were about to do, there was an electric thrill went through the group of us when we recognized for the first time nearly in American military history, we were going to use maneuver and indirection and deception to achieve our purpose. That was Schwarzkopf's contribution to the U.S. Armed Forces. One of the most central characteristics of Schwarzkopf, in my view, was he was immensely demanding on his immediate subordinates. Now, I wasn't an immediate subordinate as a two-star division commander. It was a three-star group that were being really torqued because he wanted things done. Part of that was because his early life experience was as a captain and lieutenant colonel in combat in Vietnam. And I think a lot of that generation said, our generals failed us. They didn't look out for soldiers. They allowed us to end up with 58,000 dead and 300,000 wounded. So I think Schwarzkopf came into the, as a theater commander said, I'm not going to let happen to these soldiers of mine what happened to us in Vietnam. So very demanding on his direct subordinates, but incredibly caring for soldiers. There's no nuance indirection to General Schwarzkopf. He knew what he was trying to do. And by the way, he's a lot of fun to be around. He's an immensely energizing figure. But there's no pussyfooting around, and you're going to get a direct feedback on your performance from General Schwarzkopf at every level. He was like that as a battalion and brigade commander, too. Care for your soldiers, intensely demanding on his own subordinates to make things happen. He was wounded twice in combat as a captain and lieutenant colonel. So, you know, he came into this final theater command job understanding the real stakes of warfare, the bloodshed that's involved in soldiers. One of my favorite memories of him is the night before I put my long-range reconnaissance teams into Iraq. They were going in just after dusk, 150 miles north into Iraq. These tremendous teams of 5 soldiers, going to be covert surveillance. General Schwarzkopf flew up there to bid them farewell. I listened to a quick briefing on where they were going, and I've got a terrific picture of him, this giant of a man standing among my much smaller LRP teams just before they lift off into combat. He choked up and could barely talk, saying goodbye to him. One of his major contributions wasn't running the U.S. forces, which is reasonably easy to do. If you can't get a bunch of Army and Marine and Special Operations and Navy and Air Force commanders at 2- and 3-star level to do what you want them to do, there's something wrong with you. So he had done a superb job planning, creating, building the U.S. force, but he was also in charge of a coalition that was astonishingly diverse. And I think he took that responsibility as his #1 mandate, particularly with the Saudis, to bring them along. So he was willing to spend huge amounts of time listening to people. I used to call it leadership by luncheon. We had weekly, bi-weekly lunches where we'd meet, and you'd look around the room. It was such a panorama of people in Arab dress, and we had mujahideen out of Afghanistan there in crossed cartridge belts and from all over the face of the earth. And we'd endlessly talk, bringing people along, trying to get them to sign up for what we were trying to do. A lot of that, again, was leadership and a part of General Schwarzkopf to say, we can't achieve this purpose without these allies. Something, I might add, that was shockingly lacking in the next incursion into Iraq. But Schwarzkopf understood that. This is an allied effort. You know, we had an Egyptian corps, a Syrian corps, a Saudi Arabian 2-division force, National Guard and active. And all that was brought together by General Schwarzkopf's insistence that this was an allied operation. A foreign language is a central skill set which is of immense value to you. And spending semesters abroad and getting immersed in a foreign culture and saying, look, these people are actually just like I am, although it's different languages and historical, legal precedents, et cetera. So General Schwarzkopf had grown up being educated, God, in France and Germany and Iran, and was fluent in German and French, and had a tremendous empathy with Arab culture and a respect for it. You know, he made a huge point of bringing along the Saudi Minister of Defense as his co-equal. We must have had 2 or 3 major briefings to General Schwarzkopf in the field as a division commander. In every case, he brought his Saudi counterpart along. So I think that's just another implication of modern leadership. This is not just running a U.S. military fight, it's dealing with your allies effectively. One thing to remind yourself is you're not there as a 3rd lieutenant. You're not there as a candidate officer, as a subaltern in training. You're not an apprentice. You're actually legally and practically in command. And as you walk into the platoon the first day, you've already got more military training, probably, than anyone in the platoon. So the skill sets are there for you to understand what you're doing. Now, having said that, as you walk into the platoon, you got a 30-year-old platoon sergeant with 4 combat tours. He's got to tutor you, and you'll gain enormously from listening to the sergeants of the Army. Plus, they're such fun to be around, and they want you to succeed. But don't forget, you're actually in charge. And the reason we want you there is because we got confidence of your character and your personal courage. And because you're not tired and beaten down, your hamstring isn't broken, and you're bringing energy and new life to the platoon. And those privates are going to all look up to you. You know, they're saying, God, this, young woman or man just came out of West Point, a year of training, and they're people of integrity, and they're going to admire you when you walk in the door. So anyway, you're not there in sufferance of the older NCOs, and that's not how they're going to deal with you. That battalion sergeant major is going to look at you as somebody that's key to their battle effectiveness.